Want to beat your mates at fantasy football? I've got a little secret for you.
Fantasy Football Hub provides the artificial intelligence, recommended transfers, expert team reveals and more, all designed to help you win your mini-league.
Big beats.
If you don't win your mini-league, we'll even refund your membership. Sign up today for 50% off. Terms apply. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 3-for-1 Sky Fantasy Podcast from Fantasy Football Hub as we look ahead to another season with the big kickoff just 2 days away. Paul, reigning champion, which we will continue to milk all season long. How is it going, and how is the planning going?
Yeah, not too bad. Planning's probably going the same as everybody else, waiting on some concrete Kane news, and then eight or nine of my players are locked in the team, and there's just a couple of places that I'm deliberating over. Might end up seeing the team split, first and second team, that I didn't want to do, but if I am 50-50 come the end, I've got some contingency plans that I'll put in late into drafts.
Is that to do with Salah and Kane or something else? Because there's some real decisions. What's brilliant this year, there's some real decisions in there. You can't have everyone.
Yeah, that's right. I've sat and had a look at a couple of different permutations. So one I had a look at all the big hitters in that I think are the best captaincy options on each of the days for the first couple of weeks, and just left the team far too weak. And as we well know in Sky, a lot of budget, mid-priced options that tick over nicely with consistency of points is kind of what we want in our teams. And I don't think I could formulate a team that had those to accompany them. So I've ruled that out, and I've also looked at kind of what I thought an optimal transfer path would be to try and get them all as well, even using a transfer in Gameweek 1, and I just didn't.
Yeah, I was looking at the same.
Started mounting them up really quickly. I mean, I wasn't operating more than one transfer a week, but which would be fine over the season average. But you know that something's like there's going to be a spanner in the works somewhere as well, right? That you're going to have to fix. So yeah, I felt far too uncomfortable doing that.
Welcome to everybody in the chat. Great to have you all with us. Windy is our first in as always. Sussex Martlet is in. Arwin, Sam D. Taylor, Phil McMahon, Ben McCrum, Madchester, Bert Welsh, Darren Skidmore, John A. Cornley. I'm 1974. Matt Woolley, Al England, Shane White, Alan Jago, Glenn Murray. All the usual reprobates. All there in the chat. Great to have you with us. Lots of questions, lots of chat around Kane, Salah, Rashford. Can we have them all? Do we need them all? Which is going to be our key topic today, which is really, really tough. Both, I expect, everyone in the chat and myself and you, Paul, have been trying 1,000,001 ways to try and squeeze them all in without sacrificing and things, and it's really, really tough. I think the answer is probably no, but we will talk about that and give the various options and permutations. Before we kick off with the podcast, a quick ad. If you play FPL and want your team rated for free, you can do so now by clicking the top link in the description below. If you do join for the full package as a paying member, you can get recommendations for personalized improvements to your team, up to stats, player comparison tools, team reveals, and so much more. And we are so confident in our tools and artificial intelligence that we're offering a staggering win your FPL mini league or your money back. As a paying member, there is also plenty of exclusive Sky content and access to our FPL and Sky WhatsApp groups with 4 former Sky champions in, including Paul, Dan, Liam, Mark, and you got Ian and loads of top Sky players. With 50% off in pre-season, there's never been a better time to join us at the Hub. Click the top link in the description and join us as a pro member for more or less 24/7 Sky chat, and also a chance to win our £500 Hub Members League. It is quite ridiculous value. Paul, we've got the fixtures up from game week 1 to 4, which takes us to the first international break. What are your kind of, top 2 or 3 thoughts or takeaways in terms of how to attack or not these first opening game weeks?
Yeah, I don't want to use too many transfers, but at the same time, I know, I appreciate there used to be an overhaul after game week 4. So if there is an element of restructuring or something comes awry very, very quickly, something emerges, then I'm happy to use 1 or 2 to restructure or make sure that my team's in a good place moving forward. But yeah, because of that international break after game week 4, and then there's a good fixture swing after that. So do I really want to be using too many on poor fixtures when teams are going to come into a good fixture run? And then with the international break after game week 8 as well. I think if I got through to game week 4 using maybe a couple of transfers, I'd be really happy with that position.
Yeah, and in a reasonable spot. It's you're right about the fixture swings. There are some teams in particular, Brighton, for example, it's very tempting to go all in on, I don't know, maybe, Dunk is probably an obvious one, but maybe Matoma, maybe Estupina. But after game week 3, their fixtures actually turn really, really tough. Don't fancy them for many clean sheets during that time. Chelsea switch after game week 2 in the opposite way. They have some really nice fixtures, so we got the opportunity to take a look at them. Maybe Jackson, maybe Enzo, maybe Colwell, maybe how their defence is set up. I've noticed in the last half an hour, Reece James has just been named the captain of Chelsea, which is interesting. There's the, who takes pens? We don't know. We may find out in game week 1 or 2. And we get to see teams like, I think Spurs are an example of someone, there's obviously the Kane saga, but which Spurs are we going to see? Are we going to see the free-flowing team that we saw in kind of 2017 or 2018, or are they just going to be kind of wide open and a bit of a mess? And there's lots of other things to think about as well. And Man City going to keep on going as they have been. Is Foden going to play a key part? There's so many questions, right? So it's really, really important, I think, in these opening 4 just to take stock, get yourself in the peloton, as you like to say, as Rich Clark coined, and take it from there.
I think I've heard that in maybe
it's being copied.
Yeah, like 70-80% of podcasts.
It premiered on Green Arrow, mate. It premiered on Green Arrow, copyright, and it's all been taken. But in terms of those opening fixtures, just a case, I think, of just staying with the pack, not using too many fixtures, keeping the structure nice and strong, being able to get to any player, all that kind of stuff. And you're right there. The big question on everyone's lips, including mine and probably including yours, is around the big hitters and the captaincies and the ownership of these players. So we've got a slide up on screen now for our podcast listeners, for those who can see. Haaland is obviously up there, 78% owned. This is obviously of the overall game at the moment. Saka is 31% owned, Rashford 27%, Salah just behind on 26%, and Kane at the moment on 19%, but depending on what happens the next day or so, that could kind of switch to 2% or 50%, right? So what's your take, Paul, on how we can fit all these? Can we fit them all in, and who are the best options?
Yeah, I mentioned there briefly, I don't think they can fit all 5 of those players in and then get a team of enablers and players that are going to tick along nicely. I think you'd have to gamble far too much. I know that Turner from Arsenal, who now plays for Forest, has been touted quite a bit. I don't like the locked-in nature of being on a 6.1 keeper where there's nowhere to go. I really want to get off. If I start with a Forest player, Gibbs White's probably the only player that I'm considering. I want to get off him really quickly, and therefore, and I don't want to be sitting with money in the bank as well. It's already tight to get the optimal team that I'm looking for just now. So I don't think I'll start with Turner, and hence that makes it even more difficult. Sam Johnson's other option, kind of the mid 6 million price bracket, who could be complemented with another couple of players, but I just want 1 or 2 big-ish defenders to sit in there with Dunk so that I can get the 5 points start off in games and then pick along that way. So I don't think it's viable to start with all 5, and therefore someone's going to have to be sacrificed. So I've kind of reverse engineered it by looking at the first 4 game weeks and looking at a combination of who I think's the best captain and who I think will be the most captained player, and then worked back. So because Haaland's ownership's at 80%, even if you do believe that Salah is going to be the most captained in game week 2 at home to Bournemouth, those that own Salah might captain him. Haaland's effective ownership still going to be higher based on the captain, like those that are captaining him. So I've given Haaland a point over Salah on that. So I've got the totals coming into game week 4 as Rashford had captained twice, Saka had captained twice, a Forest player once, Haaland 4 times, Kane once, Salah once, Chelsea twice, and then probably West Ham against Luton if I was picking the best captaincy on those days as well. So I've got Kane once and Salah once, but I've got Kane in captaincy on game week 1, whereas I've not got Salah in captaincy until game week 4, and he plays on calendar day 2 on game week 4 as well. So make it an easier switch across rather than vice versa.
And you could even do it if you wanted on game week 3, right? I think this is the thing which is making me go more towards Kane than Salah. It's always that extra fixture, and it's really, really important. And Spurs play Bournemouth away on Saturday, which is, a really good fixture. United are home to Forest on the same day, so you'd guess that someone like Rashford would probably be the best captain. But you say that you know if Kane kicks on in these first 2, if he stays and kicks off, that game's really good. And those with Salah are struggling, whereas you can then, you say if you really wanted, you can go from Kane to Salah on the Sunday, but that game's away to Newcastle, which is going to be tough. So then you can keep Kane for the Burnley game the next week and then move him on if you want. So I think that for me is why I'm probably erring for Kane over Salah. It's just obviously the thing of, does he stay? But if he doesn't, there's a lot of people in the same boat, isn't there?
Yeah. So the way I'm weighing it up is that if Kane does leave, who do I think is the best captaincy on the Sunday if both play? And I think and for me the answer is Kane. So that goes in his favour. Kane's more expensive, so if nothing came out and then say on Saturday morning, like it was announced that he'd signed for Bayern, he wasn't going to play on the Sunday, whilst it'd be a wasted transfer and I would be extremely frustrating, because Kane's more expensive than Salah, you can downgrade to Salah, whereas if you had the other way around and really wanted Kane, it might be 2 moves if you're using up the budget elsewhere, whereas I think most people will be using all their budget, or I've got that sense anyway with the way that Sky have well priced the players this season. And I guess I've got this personal allegiance to Kane now after that. So this is relevant to me, but nobody else really. But on the last day of the season, Captain Kane obviously won me the game over Captain Salah when he was my other choice as well. So I do have a soft spot more for him. And
what does that mean, Paul, in terms of, in summary, we can't have all these players. Well, you can't have all these and Trent, or Virgil, Van Dijk, or whoever else. Who are the 1 or 2 players who would fall short for you here, or are you just thinking about that Kane then move on to Salah? Or
I think at present I don't want to be short on 2 of them. Like Haaland's a must, right? So we're sitting with the other 4, and there is obviously arguments for and against. Like Martinelli's a little bit cheaper than Saka, and if it's that value difference, but knowing that I'm going to captain Saka probably twice in the first 2 game weeks, I want to keep him. I know there's an argument that Man United's passing stats are likely to go up, and Onana's ownership and goals is going to be high, so Wolves are kind of are shot shy as well. So as captain and a defender for Man United on the first Monday, viable? Definitely viable, but I still believe that Rashford's the best pick, and it's likely he's going to be playing centre forward as well with Garnacho on the left, whilst Højlund comes back to full fitness as well. So I can happily fit in all the players bar 1 of the 5 into a team that I'm comfortable putting out from game week 1. And at present, I think it's Salah that's missing out for me, but that's not to say he couldn't go off big. He's got a good record against Chelsea in the big games. Also, nice home fixture at home to Bournemouth in game week 2 as well. So it is fraught with risk, but that's how I'm currently thinking about it.
Not forgetting as well that Liverpool beat Bournemouth 9-0 in, was it game week 2? Really early last year, wasn't it? And Salah inexplicably blanked in a 9-0 win.
He's got a good record against Bournemouth.
He scored a hat trick a few days before.
Well, he missed a penalty last season away as well. So I know he does have a good record. Although I don't look into that too much. If you read the Data Revolution, those thoughts sit in people's minds rather than being necessarily factual or evidence of what the future is going to bring for stats like that.
Question on Trent or Van Dijk. I'm cooling on Trent. I think from what I've seen in pre-season, I just don't think he's going to be the same sort of attacking beast. He seems to be offset pieces. Now I know they're only friendlies, but I've seen that Robertson and, excuse my pronunciation of Soberslay, and a couple of others have been taking lots of set pieces over Trent. I'm assuming he'll come back and take some, but his attacking output, hasn't been great in pre-season. His positioning for what we want him to kind of do. He may get passing, he may get he may get the odd goal or assist. Obviously clean sheets, but I think if their opening fixtures were better, I think if they had like if they had Arsenal or Man United's fixtures, I'd be a lot more tempted to go with him. But the fixtures are really tough. I expect them to concede against Chelsea. I expect them to concede against Newcastle and Villa, which I think that's 3 of the opening 4 weeks. Or 5, sorry.
And Bournemouth's going to press high. Like, I wouldn't surprise me if Bournemouth scored at Anfield as well.
Yeah, so I think I'm going without at the moment.
Trent was an interesting one because he was one of the first players I looked at. What his price was.
Oh, he was first on my team. I think after Haaland.
Yeah, and you look at 10 million and think that's great, yeah. But the launch of the Sky game came about very close to the fixtures being announced. And then obviously looking at the prices of the players that I wanted and trying to cover off the captaincies. So that's the very first thing that I do when I build my Sky team. Look for any enablers or look who I'm going to cover for the captaincies is probably the two. And Trent's never been in any of my drafts, even though it's like one of the first players I looked at his price. I do still think that there's massive defensive frailties. Yeah, they made 2 great signings in centre midfield to get particular legs going forward and kind of more industrious, but they still haven't solved the defensive midfield problem, and they've conceded as well as scoring a lot in pre-season. They've conceded a lot as well, so he's like completely out of my consideration. Albeit, I know that at some point in time this season, I am very likely to own him because his passing stats were up in that inverted position, and he looked obviously a real threat going forward towards the end of last season. So he will come back into my consideration. I've got no doubt about that, but certainly for the start, I'm quite comfortable going without him. I'm never going to captain him in any game.
Yeah, that's it. And you've got the price points there already, haven't we? We talk about Saka, Rashford, all these players. Well, I think when Liverpool's fixtures do turn, they go on a really good run of fixtures. I think he'll be in a lot of people's teams, but I think at the moment, I think I'm going without him. You said he hasn't been in every your draft. He's been in every draft of mine until yesterday when I was having my first sort of real look at it and thinking, I just can't afford all these players. I know who I want, who I, to kind of quote James from Planet FPL, who I need, and he wasn't in there. And he's going to hurt at some point. He always he's going to have one of those games where he gets a goal, 2 assists, passing bonus, and a clean sheet, and it's going to sting like hell. But you just can't have everyone, so it's you're poisoning it at the moment. Let's have a look at the overall ownership to just have a chat around the fringes of the fringe of the teams. We talked about 4 or 5 sort of players there. Look at the ownership for the rest there. The top 4, Haaland, Saka, Salah, and Rashford. We talked about those 4 already. Trippier in at 5, 25% owned. I have no interest in Trippier. I think the only one I may have some interest in the future is potentially FPL, just because he's so good on bonus points. But
I don't think he's a good Sky. I said last season, I don't think he's a good Sky asset anyway, regardless. And they don't have great fixtures, and he's had a price hike as well. And I'm not taking away from the fact he scored well last season. That was coincided with that amazing defensive run that Newcastle went on, and I just can't see that again this season.
Yeah, agree. Trent is next. We talked about Trent. We talked about Kane. Lewis Dunk. He's only 19% owned. He should probably be in everyone's team, I think. Ollie Watkins for me is an interesting one. I really like him. I really think he's going to have a fantastic season. 9.3.
I said a Chelsea player was twice on my captaincy. If I was picking, I actually revert back on that statement because I'd have them as once, and I'd have a Villa forward, Watkins or Diaby. Well, it would be Watkins and then Diaby as the standout captaincy option against Everton a week on Sunday, I think it is.
Yes.
So definitely viable starting with Watkins. He is almost fixture proof as well. So
shots on target is just ridiculous as well. And he gets like shots almost nearly every game.
It's either him or kind of one of those centre backs like Saliba or John Stones, like players around that price, and it's pick your poison there. I think I think both are viable, and if someone made a strong argument for me about including one over the other, I definitely wouldn't argue back too much.
Ramsdale in 16% of teams. I think if he does start the season, which I'd probably expect him to, I think he's going to do well, especially in the first three. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get minimum of 2, probably 3 clean sheets.
I think if the game had launched earlier, sorry, I take that back. I think if Onana had signed for Man United when the game launched, that his ownership would be higher than Ramsdale's.
Nick Pope in at 15, same as Trippier, won't go for him yet. John Stones at 9.2. He's one of those I would love to have on my team. He's not in need, is he? But he is one of those I'd so like to have him in. You can just see Man City just stroking the ball around. Seen Gvardiol is coming at 9.3 as well. I think he's going to be a staple in everyone's teams in a few weeks.
Do you know when you kind of know that you're making a decision and then you look for the little ounce of thing that justifies it, even though it wouldn't be.
That's how I live my life, mate.
I've got that thing with John Stones just now, and that he doesn't get passing bonuses regularly in that centre midfield role. Oh right, okay, well that's enough not to like that makes my decision easier. When I had him in a lot of my early drafts as well. I'm definitely not saying that I'm not going to have him, but it's like trying to fit them all in is difficult. See, Sky's done a fantastic job this year, albeit it might end up turning template because of that again, but so be it.
Saliba at 9. Estepina, we mentioned, 8.1. First 3 fixtures are fantastic. They do get a bit tougher from a defensive view after that. Kevin De Bruyne, quite surprisingly. Go on.
Who would you pick? If formation 11, who would you pick? Mitoma at 8 million or Estepina at 8.1 million? If you had to have one.
Probably Estepina, but I don't think he'd be like a long-term pick. I think he'd be one you go in, you grab the points. He's good for clean sheets. He's okay for passing. Good for attacking. Well, I say good. He's got potential for attacking returns. Mitoma strikes me as a 2-5. Well, end of the season, he didn't score in the final quarter of the season, but he strikes me as a 2-5, 8-2, 2-5 sort of player, whereas Estepina can chuck in the odd haul if he keeps a clean sheet and gets passing. Like I say, the fixtures lend themselves, right? These opening 3 games, you guess he'd get passing in the home games, assuming they don't change their style of play, and there's always the things for attacking returns and everything. So I think from the first 3, I'd be tempted by SGP. I think he's got more kind of avenues to points, and I'm tempted by him. I've got a space in my team, that kind of 8 million space for my 11th player, and it's Rice, Casemiro, Estepina, Mitoma. That sort of
the Abbeys are in that place as well.
Yeah, that's that sort of realm. Who else have we got? De Bruyne at 10.9, Darwin 9.4, Odegaard 10.3.
The Darwin Núñez bandwagon lasted all of 24 hours.
Yeah, he did. He hasn't played the last 2, has he? And I think they're just going to switch it around so much. It's going to be impossible to call who's going to play in it. And then Isaac and Onana squeezes in at the end at 13%. So no Nakamba, even though you've been shouting at Curry across all Instagram 1%. And everything else.
1%.
Wow, okay, interesting. Just a few interesting ones just from the TFF pod we did the other night. Obviously, there's a bit of crossover in terms of tackles and attacking returns, but Brownhill at 7 million is on set pieces for Burnley and averages roughly 2.5 tackled per game last season in the Championship, and Norwood 7.3 is the same as well. So there's some other kind of interesting ones there. Bissouma 7.3 should play, being given the number 8 shirt, should get passing in most games, you would guess as well. Who's your after Nakamba? Who would be your second favourite enabler? You can't have Colwill, obviously.
Based on his price alone, it'd probably be Kamara. Just because
6.8 is he?
or 7? I think he's 6.7. Okay. I think. double check now, but only because of price, and I know that I'm going to be I know that I'd be 0.1 short or something like that at one point in time as well. But then again, yeah, 6.7. I think I'd have Kamara because of the price point rather than necessarily having a higher upside than any of those players.
Like the passing as well. I think he was the way that Villa are going to play. And I know they're opening fixtures are not. Well, I say that they're home to Everton game week 2, aren't they? But
it's a long term. It's a long term move anyway, and tackling doesn't usually concern the fixtures and stuff. So yeah, probably Kamara. I do think that long term, and I wouldn't be starting with one of those players. I do think that the centre halves at Burnley long term. Let's see how they set up, but they play a passing possession based game, and I could see. Well, let's get some data from the first kind of 4, maybe even up to 8 games first, and then make some decisions there. They obviously missed the game in game week 2 anyway, but I do think that longer term they might emerge as options in Sky.
Some questions in the chat, just around Kane, just shortened from 1 to 2, from 8 to 11 to stay. That's interesting. We've had some news there that he may stay, which as a Spurs fan is fantastic. As a fantasy fan, it's a pain because we just can't get to him. And John Maloney, if we get confirmation of Kane to buy into Richarlison, a good option from the off, it's hard to argue. Well, it's hard to argue. Maybe Maddison as well, though obviously Richarlison is far less. Was he 8 million, early 8s? I think Richarlison as a forward, didn't he?
He has 8, yeah.
I think we've answered most of the other questions actually. Graham says, got a solid main team, taking a few chances with my second team. Good luck everyone. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. And we had questions as well off Ben McCrum. He's going with Colwill, Nakamba and Bissouma to enable premiums too risky. So I think that's what I'm going to do in my second team. I think I'm going to pack in Colwill, potentially, now you just said Nakamba, maybe Kamara as well, and just, smash into the premiums. Maybe go for someone like, I don't know, Ruben Dias or someone like that, and just maybe go a bit different, but high upside players as well. The second team. You mentioned earlier potentially about splitting your seeds, which you didn't do last year. Is that down to one player, or is it a strategy?
If I was doing it, it would be Kane and one and Salah another. Okay. And if I had the money to do that without other changes, I might need to change one player to facilitate that. I am, because of the success I had in doing it last year, I am still thinking more having Kane and just going without Salah. Yeah. And this is like, mentioned this on a couple of pods before as well, is that whilst I'm a massive advocate for trying to de-risk yourself right at the very, very start and set up template-ish. Last season, just as a reminder, I did miss the Salah hat-trick against Man United on the Sunday. He wasn't extremely high owned, but he had a decent ownership. And I captained Rashford, who blanked, and people captained Salah. So not only did it hurt once, but it doubled, and I still managed to get through. So I'm going with that mentality that if I do miss one haul, I am de-risking by not putting myself in a position where multiple players can haul and I can get in trouble. But there is going to be some instances, so just trying to minimise those occurrences. But if that does happen to you, you can build up a good season from that point.
I remember last year I was just climbing, and I'd gone from like 50th to about 15th in a space of 3 weeks, and I was just on the climb. And I think I actually brought Rashford in that day as well. I don't think I had the option for Salah, but I think I brought Rashford in, and all that slow climbing up to 15th, and I went straight back down to like 53rd in an hour, and that really hurt. It really did. But as you say, it goes to show that you don't have to hit every haul. I remember Liam saying he missed a few holes when he won, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, so like Aubameyang or something like that. He missed
against Norwich, I think, wasn't it, or something like that.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at game week 1. Friday the 11th, 48 hours away. Well, 50 hours away. Burnley Man City first, pretty straightforward. Haaland captain. What are you going to do if we see the team, and if if Gvardiol starts, he might be one I might be tempted to go with from the off, personally. He looks a fantastic player, and I think he'll play every game. If Foden starts or, Stone starts, anyone like that, would you be tempted to bring anyone in just based on that starting 11 or not?
So I think prior to 7 o'clock on Friday, I'll have these are the situations that can happen in the game, and this is what I'm going to do in all situations. So I think I'll either be including the Man City player prior to 7 rather than adding the Man City player after 7, if that makes sense.
Yep, makes sense. Good stuff. Saturday, the 12th of August, we get to see the lineup for Arsenal and Forest, so no nasty surprises there. I can just see Arsenal battering Forest. I don't know. I'm tempted to go for Havertz in FPL. Sheffield United and Palace, 3 o'clock. Everton, Fulham, Brighton, Luton, Bournemouth, West Ham, Newcastle, and Villa. Saka, due to his ownership, 37% at the moment. Obviously, there's still 2 days to go as well, so it'll probably rise, you would guess. Anything else of note there?
What's your thoughts on Turner from Forest? I give my opinion on it. It does allow additional.
Absolutely. I just think it's too much of a risk for me personally, because you don't want him for the Arsenal game, do you? That's the thing. You want him for the one after, which is next Friday. And even if you get that game out of him as well and you think you've won, you then potentially got to get rid of him. I mean, they've got when does it shut the transfer window? Is it end of August or end of September? I can't remember.
Yeah, I thought it was after the first 3 game weeks or something. Yeah. I could be wrong about something like that.
I just think it could work out, but it just seems a bit of an unnecessary risk, I suppose, because he may not even play. And then what a waste. Not only have you not got the captain you wanted, you have to make a transfer, which means you have to find money from somewhere to get him up to a reasonable keeper. So for me, it's not worth it. I think if we heard and it came out in the next 48 hours before the game went deadline, they're not going for Henderson, Turner's our number 1. I think I would be tempted then, because of what it does for the rest of the team. Because he will get saves and stuff, right? He will haul at times if he plays. But for me, it's probably an unnecessary risk. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely not going there. I just think you're locked in at that price point, and he might not be first choice. Do I think that he could be the highest scoring player against Sheffield United on the Friday? For sure, he could be. But I think based on using the transfers around it and the uncertainty and stuff, and Forest's fixtures, I definitely wouldn't want to hold on beyond that anyway.
He might be when I chuck in the B team. Just as a risk, because if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. But if it does work out, you could get off to an absolute flyer. If they draw 0-0, which is not against the realms of possibility, right? Then you've still got him, and you've enabled a really good team as well. You can get off to a bit of a flyer there. So
Crystal Palace got Sheffield United, who have had a dreadful pre-season, both on and off the field. Eze, we were talking about 8 million-ish players earlier on, so you slightly preferred Estupinian, as did I, slightly preferred Estupinian to Mitoma. If we were to bucket up options around that 8 million, so Declan Rice, I'll give you 5. Declan Rice, Casemiro, more like what would be more consistent player tick-alongs, like with tackles and passes, most likely. Eze, Mbeumo, and Diaby from Aston Villa. Who would be your worst? And you don't need to rank all 5 in order, but who would be your best out of those 5, and who would be your worst?
I think for me the best would probably it's either Rice or Casemiro, but I do think that Rice is. I think that Casemiro's disciplinary record, I think it counts against him, and I also just think Arsenal are a far better team than Man United. I can see Rice just dominating everything, getting, and I also think as well in that Arsenal team we're going to be much more on the front foot than West Ham. I can see him getting some some odd attacking returns, like scoring from the edge of the box and things. So I'd say Rice is the best. In terms of the worst there, I think Diaby to start, and maybe I'm being a bit short-sighted. I think what Eze does have, he's going to have all the set pieces and penalties, whereas Diaby isn't going to have those, and Villa's start isn't the best. Yeah, that'd be me. What about you?
It would give you a nice captain option potential. I'm not saying you would captain him, but it gives you a nice option on game week 2 on the Sunday, home to Everton as well. When Chelsea's away to West Ham's other game.
It's Dyche though, isn't it? I don't think it's going to be the Everton of last year. I can see Villa winning, but I don't know.
Yeah. And Mbeumo got 17 attacking returns in the Premier League last year, which was a lot higher than what I had thought until I went back and looked. I know he had a good season, and I recall him picking up attacking returns, but 17 in the 38 games, and if he played them all, it was pretty impressive. And Brentford's got a really nice run to start the season. I don't know. I'd Diaby higher than you. I definitely didn't have him at the lowest.
Who would be your lowest then?
I don't know why I asked you, knowing that I'm struggling to answer it myself.
They're all really good options, aren't they?
Yeah. I think that it's not like Casemiro and Rice start on 5 points like Rodri does, and I think people there is a perception that they do, or they're like.
I think they might in his opening 3 games. I think that's possibly, the thing for me.
But Rodri's a guarantee. Like he won't get unless Man City were playing against Liverpool or Arsenal, perhaps. Like Rodri's starting on 5 points, whereas there is doubts about the other two. I think I'd have Eze highest based on just based on all the set pieces. He's a 90-minute man.
Yeah,
the extra. I know that the extra minutes that are potentially going to get played shouldn't factor in too much. Or like Carl Weeks did analysis at bookies and stuff, and worked out that they're measuring it at 20 extra goals a season, which is only one every second weekend, if you like. So what's that? 1 in 40 games there should be an extra goal.
I don't believe that in the slightest. I'm not buying it.
Absolutely
not. Like you're only going to look at the Community Shield. It's 100% strike rate at the moment. If that had been normal time, and I know you're butterfly effect. I get that, but it's 1 out of 1 so far, and I think it'll happen more and more. I think the tired legs, late substitutes. I think we'll see more cards, more tired tackles, more penalties. I do. I'm not saying every game, right? But if you're adding 6 or 7 minutes onto a game, and it's at the frantic end of a game normally, I think we'll see a lot of chaos, personally.
Yeah. I think a lot of people's going to be looking around that 8 million mark, and hence why I asked the question.
Yeah.
I think all 5 are viable options, and that might be the one where like a little bit of a differential, a player that you're not going to captain, or maybe you would captain, to say Diaby in game week 2 as an option. Does that swear or not?
I think I'd like to start off with someone who has good fixtures. I'd like to be on the front end, and that's why I like Rice with Arsenal's fixtures. I think Arsenal's fixtures are just fantastic, as good as they come for all 3 opening games. So.
Yeah.
Looking at Sunday, as we touched on already, Brentford and Spurs, Chelsea and Liverpool. So you're pro Kane at the moment. I think he's the best captain on that day.
Yeah, for me, I don't think I'd have Trent as the 3rd best captain. I think my order would be Kane, Salah, and then probably another Spurs attacker in 3rd spot, like Maddison or Son. Possibly Maddison, by what I've seen from the highlights.
He's more or less on the shoulder of Kane, wasn't he? Most in the box all the time. 9.3 is he, I think.
And at Celtic, Postecoglou always had the 2 number 8s that he played with, like bombing into the box and getting goals, like almost like that Lampard late runs into the box. So
I think Maddison's going to have a really good season, definitely. Again, it's just the opening fixtures for the other teams is why I'm on for them more. Yeah. And then United and Wolves, I think Rashford will probably be the highest captain. You can go with Onana though, right?
Yeah, and like there's a belief that Martinez's passing stats are going to be up.
Yeah,
I don't know if having a goalkeeper that's good with their feet constitutes your defenders getting more passing bonus, because surely they're long. Like, the whole point in him being good with his feet is that his long passing is good as well as his short passing. However, that's not to say that I don't think if Martinez played the full season that he wouldn't pick up passing on a regular basis. Anyway, so he is a viable option in my opinion. I just think that Rashford and as Bruno, I just think that Rashford will be the highest captain and probably has the highest upside there as well.
Cool. Thank you for that, Paul. On to the questions. Thank you so much to everyone who has sent them in. We've answered a lot of them, but we'll go through some of the ones we haven't answered. Colin Johnston says, hi guys, can't wait for the new season. Best Luton assets for the single game weeks. I don't know much about Luton. Nakamba probably do a job if you've got, if you've got Nakamba, but.
And then Morris probably second, albeit he's going to be difficult to get in. Either of those are going to be difficult to get in if you don't start with them because of that missing game week that they've got.
Yeah. Answered Dark Sky Invaders. Nigel Ridden. Lewis Hall has gone to Palace. Only 6.5 million, maybe a decent enabler. Surprise Chelsea have loaned him out. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on him in Sky? His price is obviously insane. He may get some attacking returns. I think the thinking is he's going to go there as a midfielder. What's your thinking?
Does that mean he starts though? I'm not entirely sure. Like, I'd have to be a wait and see for me. Like, and I don't really want to be messing around with 6.5 players after the season starts either. So it makes it really difficult, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he's down as a midfielder. It's not even if he's down like as a defender to get that extra thing. GG Magpie, with Nkunku's injury, how good does Nicholas Jackson look as an option for Chelsea? We haven't touched on him yet, but I think both of us.
He's 8 million. He's 8 million as well. So if you were playing that 8 million spot, I think there's a good chance that he has a good start to the season. Chelsea have the fixtures, but how many bad games, or like if he has one bad game, what does that mean? And I'm not entirely sure yet. And like if he has a poor opening weekend against Liverpool, does that mean he then doesn't play the next couple of games and maybe you're relying on him for captaincy in game week 3? I don't know. It's a bit of a wait and see. I do think he starts the season, and I do think that if he performs well, even, and I don't mean by necessarily scoring a goal against Liverpool, but if his hold up plays well, which it has been, if his hold up play is good, which it has been in pre-season, then I definitely think he is an option for sure.
I just have a look at Destiny Udogi. What a wonderful name, by the way. You've got Marvellous Nakamba and Destiny Udogi, 7.7 million. Looks like he could potentially be the starting left back for Spurs. Not the best opening fixtures away to Brentford, Man United. I think they'll probably concede in both of those, but I think after that their run is absolutely fantastic. And with this possession-based play and the fact that he is very, very high up the field, I think he could be a player who we see kicking on really, really well. I think I'm going to put him in my B team from the off as well, just to try and get ahead, because I think he could be in everyone's team come game week 4 or 5 personally, if he continues to start every game and they get the possession as expected. Finally, is Kamara a good alternative enabler to Nakamba? That's not a bad shout, actually. He's only 0.1 more. He does have the game in game week 2, and Kamara is a proven Premiership player. I do remember last year, just before he got injured. I think he even went off injured on like 59 passes or so, which is a bit of a sickener. But I think with Kamara, I think he's got probably multiple avenues to points potentially than Kamara, even though Nakamba will probably get more tackles overall. What do you think?
Yeah, at the time it was dealt with as quite a bit of a coup for Villa getting him. Maybe less so now with Emery in charge and I'm like building the squad that they've got. But I remember there was a bit of fanfare at the time they got him, and there was a lot of Sky managers, engaged Sky managers that got on him early, and I think he did okay. Is probably the best way of putting it. He ticked along a bit before he picked up that injury. So for sure, I think he's definitely an option in there. Do you think he starts every game? Do you think that's him nailed on? I know that he has been playing a lot with Douglas Luiz centre midfield in pre-season. Do you think that that's a long-term thing, or do you think there is a chance for rotation?
I don't know enough about Villa, but I'll be talking to Adam Hopcroft tomorrow on Green Arrow, so I will ask him.
See, you mentioned FPL one more time on this pod.
I didn't. I said Green Arrow, Adam Hopcroft. I said Villa fan.
It's like the fourth reference.
Do you want to get your team rated? We've answered all the questions around Kane and Haaland. Let's have a quick look if we've got any more. Graham Craig says about Pau Torres. There's a passing machine at Villarreal, 8.1. Could be good. Yeah, I think probably just need to, for me, just wait and see a little bit. I think there are other options who are, who are not more likely to do well, but who we think will do well, who are kind of, again, proven in the Prem and stuff. Not that I don't think he will do well.
So there's a lot of it feels this season that there's a lot of excitement about a lot of teams, which is great for the game. Like great for the game of football, and great for fantasy as well. So you've got Villa, Spurs, and there's got to be a lot more optimism about Chelsea this season, and even Man United strengthened in the right areas for them as well. That you can think they can kick on.
Get a bit of stick off Glenn in the chat. It says possession-based player. Let's see how much possession Spurs have versus the big boys. Yeah, I can't argue with that, Glenn. But I would also just say, if we do look at Spurs fixtures from game week 3 onwards, they read Bournemouth, Burnley, Sheffield United, Arsenal, Liverpool, fair enough, Luton, Fulham, Crystal Palace. So 6 out of those 8 games, pretty good. I would take passing bonus in 6 out of the 8 games, obviously assuming he plays. Final question before we move on, and it's off Ditil Day. How many transfers do you plan to use in the first 8 game weeks? Good question.
4 or 5, and maybe 2 up to 2 max up to the first international break. Without them being planned in necessarily. Say if I do start with a Forest player, I will get one off them pretty quickly. I'm not buying into but they've got single game days after the international break. They're all on Mondays, and you know what? Like at that point in time, maybe Turner is an option for in a way that you'd be restructuring the team, or there'll be a lot more information at that point that I'd be happy to take on board before being fixed on, say, Gibbs White at 7.9, knowing that there's a lot of good options around 8 million who have a lot better fixtures than Forest do as well. So, so if I started with Forest player, that would be one I'd be locked in, maybe one as a contingency up to international break, and then in the 2 or 3 to set my structure from prior to game week 8, with a view then not to use many up until, as and when I need them, or fixture gains or captaincies emerge.
Yeah, same. I think we played the first half of the season pretty well last year. You're tempted to move off, aren't you, for potential fixture gains or whatever else. But I think I only used 9 by November, which was, what game week was the World Cup? 15-16 was it?
Yeah, it was about a third of the season done, I think.
Yeah. So I think get used. Anything up to 12 or even 15 is probably reasonable. But I don't think I'd want to use any more than 12 by the the first third of the season. Personally, though, there are different ways of playing. But we do this every season without fail. You just come to the end of the season, and I would have loved to have been able to bring in Estepin, Trent, all these players who were banging it. I couldn't get to Callum Wilson. And you just think of the transfers you kind of wasted earlier on. You're just like, why did I bring in that knobhead for a captaincy for a 2-pointer when I should have just kept on and got 5 games out of Trent, for example.
Well, that's another reason for me ruling out the hokey cokey around the premiums right at the very start. I'm probably going to take 4 transfers, and that's not factoring in that I might need to fix something else on top of that, because your budget's locked in then. So it's not like you can move the player out that gets injured or gets dropped outside of those players onto one of them.
Good stuff. Just before we go, a reminder, if you play FPL and want your team rated for free, you can do so now by clicking the top link in the description below. If you do join for a full paying package, you can get recommendations for personalised improvements to your team, up to stats, player comparison tools, team reveals, and much, much more. Win your FPL mini league or your money back, we are running as well. There's also plenty of exclusive Sky content for our members and access to our FPL and Sky WhatsApp groups with 4 former Sky champions, and we chat Sky all day, every day. 50% off. Click the top link in the description. Come and chat Sky with the very best managers in the world, and also have a chance to win our £500 Hub Members League. Fantastic value indeed. And that is it from us. What a pre-season, Paul. Still not all sorted. This Kane thing could rumble on, right? Which could obviously change a few things, but
Badia Shields just been announced that he's back in training as well. So those on call
will be nervous. Oh jeez, yeah, and they've signed that Diasasa as well as cover centre back as well. So yeah, it could be interesting. That is it for us this week and for this pre-season. As usual, thank you all so much for watching and listening. Your continued support, as usual, much, much appreciated. All you guys live in the chat, everyone who's going to watch this back and listen as well. And thank you so much, Paul. Where can people find you?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty, 1 MCANULTY.
And my handle on Twitter is at FFH_Fergi. If you want to meet a celebrity, just go onto Instagram, go onto the Sky channel. Paul's mug is absolutely plastered all over it at the moment, giving his tips and bits and pieces, so make sure you jump on there. If you like what you watched, please press the like button. We've only got 25 likes. Only 25 likes. Come on, let's get up to 50 or 60. There's 100 people watching. Remember to subscribe in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and if you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave some comments. It really, really, really does help us, believe it or not. We'll be back next week with a Sky Game Week 2 preview. Until then, enjoy the opening weekend, and goodbye for now.